Welcome to the next chapter of Trailblazers in the city of Las Vegas. On the sidelines of Microsoft Inspire, I have a very distinguished guest and an old friend of mine, Judson Althoff. Judson actually runs worldwide commercial organization of Microsoft. Judson has been instrumental in this wonderful journey at Microsoft for the last 6 years or so. He's been the president of North America before the current role, and has been one of the key players in the transformation of Microsoft in the last few years. Thank you, Judson, for taking time out and talking to us. Wonderful to have you, and every time I meet you, I always get inspired by your big idea thinking.
Great.
And your ability to execute at relentless focus.
Well, it's very kind of you. It's my honor and frankly a pleasure to be here with you again, Ravi.
Let me tee up the first question for you. You know, the re-emergence of Microsoft in the last few years as one of the pioneering digital transformational partners for enterprises. Amongst everything else I've heard of in terms of what Microsoft has done, the single biggest thing I hear from your teams is the cultural renewal inside the firm. Tell us a little bit about it and how that has made the change, that significant change for Microsoft.
Well, first of all, thanks for everything you said, all the kind words. You're right to point out that culture is at sort of the cornerstone or foundation of really all of our work. I think actually one of the most important things Satya did when becoming CEO was to reframe our culture and to speak deeply and frankly from the heart of what growth mindset means to him. Because I would sort of jokingly say to him, hey, listen, we can't just print out the t-shirts and the coffee mugs and say, culture delivered. We actually have to live it, right? And so this learn it all mentality is really this notion that if you take a pool of human beings and you take a group of folks who may have institutional acumen over a given topic, versus those that have unlimited curiosity and a passion for really aggressive learning and an acute focus on learning. That, whilst day one, those that of course have the experience will likely outpace the learners, that in the fullness of time, the learners will far outpace any institutional knowledge. Because in our industry, innovation is actually what is appreciated far more than tradition. And so that was sort of like the premise or the theory behind it all. The investments have actually become far more practical, though, in terms of how we show up. We've changed entirely how we run meetings at Microsoft. When I first started at the company, I had exposure to, quite frankly, a lot of the legacy in the past. At that time, if you had a little red dot next to your name, it was probably going to be a long day in the review cycle. We've turned that on its head entirely. Now if there's a little green dot on the scorecard next to your name, you're far more likely to be asked to speak about it because we want the people who have actually mastered the skill and somehow figured out how to be cutting edge in their delivery to teach the others. So this is one practical example, but this notion of having a growth mindset coupled with really the impact statement of wanting to make a difference. We really do believe that our differentiation in the market is to be the great empowering company. We're not as proud of talking about our own achievements, our own technology gains or financial gains as much as we are talking about the outcomes and the impact that we have for customers. And so whilst growth mindset is the overarching anchor to our culture, making a difference is the real goal. And then again, so sort of to guide everyone in the company and even our partner ecosystem on pillars that they could really grasp and some meaning behind this notion of having a growth mindset. We devised 3 pillars. One, that we would always obsess over our customers. Satya would always say, if you want to be cool, Microsoft is not the place for you to come and work. If you want to make other people cool and help them reach their potential, come work for us. The second thing is to operate as one. I think historically Microsoft had almost a franchise model. Now, in fact, our greatest strength is actually coming together and putting forth our portfolio of intellectual property and putting that to work for our customers. And then the final pillar, which has deep meaning for me, is our investments in diversity and inclusion. And we have invested greatly in recruiting early in career diverse talent to come to Microsoft, because we believe that none of us is as smart as all of us. And if you can capture the ideas of many, incorporate them into your overall strategy, you're going to be far better off. And then the investments in inclusion as a part of it, right? Because it's one thing to work hard numerically on diverse representation, but you have to create the environment where people feel like they can learn, grow, and thrive and be happy in the work that they do. And also then do the hard work of not just making sure that that environment exists at Microsoft, but also the communities around them, where their families have to live. And so that sort of frames the journey that we're on. And I would just emphasize that word journey, because we do believe this is work that is never done. We're reasonably pleased with our progress, of course, but a lot more to do.
How do you do this at scale for such a large enterprise as Microsoft, federated and in some ways distributed across the world? Yeah. And how do you make sure that every new hire who comes on board inculcates that culture?
It's a great question, and you're right to point out the importance of it all. And so for us at Microsoft, the mechanisms that we choose to use are first to sort of understand that, look, culture is what people will do when unsupervised. Yeah. And so you have to actually almost create this human flywheel that sort of builds upon itself, rewarding people for learned activities, rewarding people for taking on tasks that are frankly more difficult
Was
than
there
the
a
average.
deliberate role modeling as well?
Yes, absolutely. From the leader level all the way down to the individual contributor level. Taking people and lifting them up for taking on a risky project, failing fast and learning faster is a big part of it. But to answer your scale question, we actually have put technology to work in a way that makes sense for our culture. We have this sort of manager framework around modeling, or leading by example, coaching and caring for our employees. And we actually use artificial intelligence to actually help in the coaching process. So in our many centers around the world, where we're both taking inbound calls for customer support as well as making outbound calls for sales, we use speech-to-text translation services and cognitive reasoning capability to understand the sentiment analysis of the conversations that all of our people are having with customers. And then we can actually play that back in a way that it can be used in a coaching dialogue. But the AI tech itself serves up a way in which you can look at scale conversations and say, wow, our customers are least comfortable dealing with us, or most comfortable dealing with us in these scenarios. And so let us help our people through the more challenging dialogues. Even simple things like saying the amount of time spent in a conversation listening versus talking, and explaining to someone that the richness of understanding comes first from listening rather than projecting is super helpful to us. So many investments across many different categories at Microsoft, but it's a continual effort, right? It can't just be a one and done kind of thing. It has to be a part of how you run the business and how you live the business.
So Judson, switching gear, I wanted to talk about a very exciting topic. Very early on, Microsoft invested onto a cloud journey for all your products and solutions.
Yep.
Invested into startups. You've invested heavily into research and development in Azure. It's actually a blockbuster offering in the market. I just love it so much.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about what's in store and how has this journey evolved over the years.
One of the concepts I unveiled this week at this conference at Inspire was this notion of democratizing digital. Yep. This notion of democratizing digital means that, frankly, we're not done until everyone is empowered to have a digital experience, and that we've enabled everyone to participate in the digital economy. And that has both depth and breadth connotations. You take a large Fortune 500 company, and it's easy to take on a artificial intelligence project around optimizing a business process. Yep. Putting sensors on machinery, building out a big data lake, optimizing a process, and saving money. And I don't mean to trivialize it. That's great work, In fact, it's very cutting edge work, but it's not done until you achieve this connectedness, even with the frontline workers, in the way in which they actually run the business. And so taking the time to equip people with modern skills, to enrich the work that people do, to connect the CEO to the front lines, or the front lines to the boardroom. And then to actually, even from the development standpoint, because we see every company becoming a software company or a technology company, and developers will change the shape of how all companies run. This notion of empowering the elite devs of the world to then turn around and enable the citizen devs to sort of unlock or spark this tech intensity from within any company. Doing that at depth, so that everyone within a large company benefits from the experience, and then turning around and doing it breadth, so that the few can empower the many. That's really the journey that we're on here, and it's why, frankly, the partnership that we have, frankly, is so important, because Microsoft can't do this on its own.
Going on your point on democratization, in some ways, the impact is going to be in every function in the organization, and decision making is very democratized. How did you make that switch to a buyer who's very different to the buyer of the past?
It's a great point. And it's truthfully less of a switch and more of an and. I try to coach my people that customers are not monoliths. There's not one single thing they're trying to get done. There are complex ambitions. There are a multitude of aspirations. And so selling to a customer is like selling to multiple rooms within a house. There may be an artificial intelligence room in the house, or a data room in the house, or a security room in the house. But on the upper floor of that house exists a business aspiration.
Absolutely.
I want to optimize my supply chain. I want to do a better job at engaging with my customers on an anonymous to advocacy journey. And then the top floor, the penthouse, if you will, is this sort of board level aspiration of finding long-term systemic growth and differentiation for that company. And so if you find a way to thread a strategy across all rooms in the house and make sure that the strategy you're devising actually creates impact across every room, that's when you have something that's lasting. And it's connecting vision and strategy and culture to the unique potential of the company.
Absolutely.
And then investing in the technical abilities that make it come to life. That to me is the formula.
In fact, never before has technology played such an important role in large enterprises. So the analogy was so apt. So Judson, I want to switch gear into a very different topic. You invested in GitHub, which kind of is in some sense a reflection of Microsoft's strategy of openness, embracing developer communities, innovation, democratization in some ways. I'm told it has around 25 billion developers, 86 million repositories. How is Microsoft going to leverage this huge asset?
Well, I think you pegged it first, Ravi, in saying that the most important thing is to serve the developer, and that's our real commitment here. We've, of course, made big investments in our own existing tool sets. Visual Studio, VS Code, for example, has taken off tremendously. Even our competitors use it in their own development environments. But GitHub to us represented the ultimate in heterogeneous developer productivity. And so investing in that community and making sure that GitHub remains pure, that GitHub remains heterogeneous. If you want to use GitHub and deploy to AWS or deploy to GCP, that's fine. We, of course, are going to do a lot to make the GitHub experience with Azure great, but we welcome...
You want to keep it agnostic?
Yes, you bet. Because, again, job number one is to serve the developer. Because we believe it falls back to this directive of democratizing digital.
Yep.
As I said earlier,
this is actually one axis of democratizing.
That's right. Yeah. There's a huge skills deficit in the world.
Absolutely.
And you know better than most.
Absolutely.
That this idea that we just go hire more elite devs, well, like newsflash, there aren't anymore. You know, and so you have to.
You have to create them, actually.
Yes, you have to enable them to empower others.
Absolutely.
Through great scale. And so we will be working very, very diligently to connect GitHub to our own citizen developer capabilities and our Power Platform and other low-code, no-code platforms.
They're going to, the GitHub ecosystem is going to benefit significantly as well from
Yeah.
Microsoft ecosystem.
Yeah, we're really happy about it, and we think the GitHub folks are doing great work.
One other area which we are hearing a lot about Microsoft is gaming.
Yeah.
I get a sense that the vision of Microsoft, lack of the right word, they want to be a Netflix for gaming. Is that an area Microsoft is?
I'm glad you asked, because running the commercial business, people often come up to me and say, we don't get the gaming thing. Why are you so invested in gaming? But gaming is strategic to Microsoft for a number of different reasons. One, because it actually does ring true to our mission of empowering every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more, because it does, it enriches people's lives. Yeah. And in fact, if you think about it, gaming is most likely the first time as a human that you were ever exposed to technology. Yeah. As a child.
Even as a 1 year old.
That's right. That's right. And so making that experience more ubiquitous. Some of the things that we have done with Xbox Live and the ability to engage more and more people on the planet in enriching gaming scenarios. Having that even feed an educational experience with Minecraft, so that students really enjoy and are inspired by the work that they do, and they actually don't even think that it's schoolwork per se. It just seems fun to them. It teaches us even about our own cloud platform. Yeah. So we made an announcement earlier this year on xCloud.
And do you want to use gamification for new technologies as well? Is that a part of the process?
Of course, but we also want to make the cloud platform itself even better. And so Satya speaks often about the intelligent edge and the intelligent cloud as the compute paradigm of the future. Yeah. xCloud actually brings that to life if you think about it. What we want to do is have streaming capabilities that ignite a world of billions of gamers to have a rich experience. But at the same time, it hardens Azure. Because some of the most demanding customers we have for Azure are gaming studios. We talk about 5 nines in the enterprise world. Well, if you have a millisecond blip in a large-scale game with thousands of people and some transformed world, right? You perhaps may have lost a customer for life. So it teaches us a lot about the resiliency of a platform, as well as helps us fulfill our mission to enrich the way people live their lives and experience learning.
Awesome. I just want to squeeze in one last question for you. With the advent of AI, automation, and machine learning algorithms underneath enterprise software, hyper-productivity is the next big thing for large enterprises.
That's right.
But most CXOs don't know how to get about it. Tell us 1 or 2 things which you believe they should know, which are very important to create an embrace on this new age machine learning AI tools.
It's great. It's great. I think the most important thing to remember is that it's about people and technology. So many of the artificial intelligence pursuits that I see are sort of this maniacal pursuit of optimization and efficiency gains. And it leaves people behind in the richness of the work that they do as an opportunity for fueling growth. Let me give you an example. And so if you take one of our more complicated offerings in Azure, our Azure Machine Learning offering, has the ability to reason over a tremendous amount of data and create all of these optimized processes. Where we've really seen it come to life is if you embed the outcomes in it, into teams, into our collaborative environment, such that people on the front lines that have never had any access to technology are suddenly getting exposed to the optimizations that are being proposed by the machine learning model. And the humans teach the model teaches the humans, the business itself learns in real time through the people that are actually achieving the business outcomes itself. The opportunity there, to me, is the massive unlock that often gets overlooked. And that's why I would just counsel, always remember that it's about people and technology.
In fact, you're bang on, so spot on. In many ways, amplifying technology to people and the virtue of applying these technologies is a much bigger thing than the technology itself.
That's right.
And the people aspect is the most important one, reskilling people to the new jobs of the future is probably what the future is going to look like for large enterprises.
That's right.
Thank you so much, Judson, for
Ravi, thank you.
For your conversation
My
today.
pleasure.
Always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you.